How y'all doing? This is Rob Burnham, aka Preacher Man R&B, and this is my part of the collab with Caleb from BoardTimeThings. Y'all be on the lookout because his part of the collab should be dropping at the same time this video does. Y'all just look up BoardTimeThings, y'all be able to find it. This video is going to be our top 5 movies, and my top 5 is going to have to be Pitch Black. Reason I like Pitch Black is like the second time I've watched a Vin Diesel movie, and I just love the concept of he has night vision pretty much, and he is able to fight in the dark. And in Pitch Black, they fight these aliens, and these aliens hunt in the dark as well. And Vin Diesel's character Riddick is captured by this bounty hunter, and they're forced to let Riddick out. That way they can survive these aliens that are trying to kill him. And Riddick and this, at first we think it's a boy, but it's actually a girl dressed as a boy named Jack, and there's one more guy that survives, and they survive on to the next movies. But I just love the concept of Pitch Black. I love the Riddick series. It's one of my favorite series. But Pitch Black has to be my number 5.
What's up? Caleb with BoardTimeThings here, and I'd like to thank Robbie for letting me come on his channel RetroLand Comics and do this. These are my top 5 favorite movies. Number 5, Serenity. Serenity is the epic conclusion to the Firefly series, and if you've never seen Firefly, there may be a good reason for that. When it first aired on television, Fox aired the episodes out of order and didn't even put them in a consistent time slot, so you never knew when the shows were coming on. Once the show got picked up by streaming, though, it kind of took off. But because of the weird time slots and everything, the show was actually canceled in its initial run because nobody saw it. It only had 1 season. But they gave the director and writer permission to do a final movie to tie up all the story, give him closure on the series, and that was Serenity. This is the epic finale. Captain Mal and crew go on one final high-stakes adventure where they're not afraid to kill off your favorite characters. I don't know why, but that seems to be something writers enjoy doing these days. Anyway, if you haven't seen Serenity, watch Firefly first, then watch Serenity. If you're a sci-fi fan, you won't be disappointed. Like a leaf on the wind, I will soar! Number 4, Big Fish. Big Fish is, in my opinion, Tim Burton's best movie, and sadly one of his often forgotten ones. It starts off at Will and his wife's wedding, and Will's dad, Ed, is there telling a story about a big fish, and it's kind of overshadowing the entire wedding because of just how fantastic the story is. After the wedding's over, Will kind of confronts Ed about it, and they butt heads and go their separate ways for a while. The movie skips ahead. Ed's health is failing. Will comes back in, the family's getting together, and this gives Will more time to learn about his dad and his dad to tell more fantastic stories. Now, the movie takes place mainly inside these stories, as you're getting to see the stories play out as the movie progresses. And Will is always at odds with his dad, wondering why his dad is telling these stories. And these stories are wild. They range, they start with Ed retelling how he met a witch that told him how he was going to die, and he meets a giant, he accidentally robs a bank, he saves conjoined twins from performing for Japanese soldiers in World War II. The list goes on and on. They're all wild, crazy stories that there's no way they can be real. So Will just wants his dad to be honest and truthful, and his dad just finally says, where's the fun in that? There's just no flavor. And Will kind of starts to understand his dad a bit, and as the movie progresses, it comes to a bittersweet climax. Will has to tell the final story. And as the movie ends, you see that maybe his stories weren't all that made up after all. It's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Big Fish is my number 4.
Alright, y'all, now for my number 4. My number 4 has to be Dragonheart, the first Dragonheart movie. Now, the premise of this movie is it's about this prince, and this prince almost dies. So to save this prince, they go to this dragon that's in the kingdom. They take half the dragon's heart and put it into the prince's heart. So if something happens to the dragon, the prince dies, and vice versa. If something happens to the prince, the dragon dies. But the prince, whenever he grows up, he becomes the bad guy pretty much. He's evil. He's not a good person. And the concept of the movie is there's this knight who befriends the dragon, and he's against the prince or whatever. And toward the end of the movie, the dragon pretty much says, "Stab me in the heart. That's the only way to get rid of the prince and stop his tyranny." And the knight at first doesn't want to do this, but he reluctantly winds up doing it and killing the dragon. And this is what kills the prince and saves the kingdom. And growing up, I just loved Dragonheart. I watched it every time it came on. I actually had a birthday of Dragonheart when I was a kid. So yeah, that's my number 4.
Number 3, Mad Max Fury Road. I actually saw this movie in theaters on a whim because in the trailer, there was a guy playing guitar on the front of a truck with lots and lots of speakers, making me think it was going to feature a lot of heavy metal in the movie. And I'm a sucker for anything heavy metal, especially something in mainstream, such as a movie as big as this one, as high profile as it was. But it didn't have a lot of heavy metal music in it, but this movie is pretty metal. Yeah, the setting's metal, the action's pretty metal, and if I'm being honest, I've never seen the Mel Gibson trilogy of Mad Max movies, so this was my first exposure to the Mad Max series. And this movie is a freaking masterclass in how to do action movies. Oh my gosh. This movie, the camera work puts you right in the action. There's freaking car choreography. If the action scenes where you see cars jumping over each other, motorcycles weaving in and out over vehicles, that's actually real stunts. It's not a bunch of computerized stuff in the background. Now, of course, there were computers, adding explosions and effects in post, but all the stunts were pretty much real. And this movie is just a masterclass in how to do a really good action movie. It's rated R, and there's really no language, and there's really no sex. It's just straight up action, front to back. This movie's awesome. If you're an action fan, never checked out Mad Max, I highly recommend it. That's why it's my number 3.
Hey y'all, my number 3 has to be the first Underworld movie. Now, if you know me, you know I'm obsessed with werewolves. I have a werewolf tattoo on my chest. Anything with werewolves, if y'all watch my Teach Me Reproductions, our D&D channel that I'm on, if I can do a werewolf character, I'm going to do a werewolf character. My first comic is a story about a werewolf. So I love werewolves. I love the lore of werewolves. But basically, what Underworld is the vampires are at war with the werewolves. And come to find out, one of the head vampires, there's 3 vampires, and they all take turns ruling. So whenever one vampire is awake, the other 2 are asleep. Vice versa. It just switches all the time. Well, we meet the main character. I can't remember her name right now, but she's a vampire and she befriends this werewolf. And something happens, and the werewolves are trying to make a hybrid between the vampires and the werewolves. And this is the guy that the main character befriends, and they fall in love or whatever, and they're trying to stop the war. And it's just an all-around great action / horror movie. I love werewolves, and I like vampires as well, but anything with werewolves, I'm down. So that is my number 3.
Number 2, the Austin Powers trilogy. I couldn't just pick one movie here because the entire trilogy to me is just perfect comedy. It's genius in how juvenile it is. I think that's the best way to describe it. It's a parody of all things spy movies from the 60s, 70s, 80s. Not just the James Bond franchise either. But I don't know what to say about this movie that hasn't already been said before. It's got a perfect cast, with Mike Myers as Fat Bastard, Mike Myers as Goldmember, Mike Myers as Dr. Evil, and Mike Myers as Austin Powers himself. These movies are iconic, produce several memes, and I still quote them to this day for some things, And it also gave those frat boys something, oh yeah, baby. Just, Just awful British accents or English accents. I don't even know what to say. But yeah, that's what I got about Austin Powers. If you've never seen it, what are you waiting on? These movies are awesome.
Alright, y'all. My number 2 is Star Wars Attack of the Clones, the second movie in the Star Wars franchise, if you're counting in order. If not, it's like the 5th movie. But anyway, what the premise of Attack of the Clones is the Jedi is fighting the droid army. The Republic doesn't have an army at this time. So they find out that the Republic has this clone army that was made by Master Sifo-Dyas. And Master Sifo-Dyas is the old Jedi Master that Count Dooku and the Sith Lord made it look like he made this clone army, but if you know about the Star Wars lore, it was actually made by Count Dooku, and then we find out what happens in Star Wars Episode 3. But anyway, I just love Attack of the Clone. We see Jango Fett, the father of Boba Fett. We see Boba Fett when he's like 12 or 13 years old. We find out that Boba Fett was a clone that just ages slowly. We actually see Yoda actually fight in his prime. He's not this old crippled Jedi Master. He's actually doing flips and giving Count Dooku the run of his money. And we see Anakin and how he's fighting his emotions and how he becomes, it's the stepping stone of him becoming Darth Vader. And it's just an all-around great movie. I love Star Wars franchise, but Attack of the Clone has to be my favorite, and this is my number 2 movie.
These are my honorable mentions. First, Stranger Than Fiction. It is not quite a romantic comedy, but I guess that's the genre I'm leaning closest towards. But I like this one because it actually showed me a side of Will Ferrell that I've never seen in any other movie. He's not just playing an idiot goofball guy who just does dumb stuff the entire time. He's playing a character with heart. He wakes up one day and his life's being narrated and he doesn't know why, and that's about the goofiest thing he does in the movie. It's a pretty straight-laced movie. He's an IRS auditor and he ends up auditing this woman who owns a bakery. And as he's auditing her, he kind of falls in love with her. Meanwhile, this author's also writing a book, and the book she's writing is the one that happens to be creating his life to be narrated. And, that just happens throughout the whole movie. They end up meeting each other and finding out. And she has an ending for the book planned out, but now that she knows that he's the main character, she doesn't know if she wants to follow through with it. So, it just kind of works itself out. And watch the movie. It's a good one. My second one, or I guess my second and third, I'm going to say Bad Boys 1 and Rush Hour 1. They just don't make buddy cop movies like they used to. They're both funny and action-packed, and if you've never seen any of them, you owe it to yourself to watch them.
Alright, y'all. I have 2 honorable mentions. My first honorable mentions is going to be Terminator 2 Judgment Day. And the Terminator series is one of my favorite series. I love the concept. Terminator 2 is my favorite Terminator movie. But basically what it is the Terminator comes back. Originally in the first movie, the Terminator came to kill Sarah Connor and to stop John Connor from being born. Well, this Terminator comes back and is reprogrammed by the future version of John Connor to save his present day version of himself against the new T2 Terminator. And the T2 Terminator is a liquefied metal, so it's pretty hard to defeat. But toward the end of the movie, the Arnold Schwarzenegger version of the Terminator, the T9000 or something, I can't remember exactly what model it is, but it winds up defeating the T2 Terminator, and it's just an all-around great movie. My second honorable mention is the first Rocky movie. Now, I like the Rocky franchise, but the first Rocky is my favorite, even though he doesn't win. Rocky 1 is a very good movie. It shows how Rocky was just an up-and-coming fighter. He was pretty much a bum fighter. He threw a lot of matches and stuff, and he finally gets his big break because Apollo is done fought all the number 1 contenders, and he wants somebody new. and Rocky almost defeats Apollo in this movie, and gives him a rematch for Rocky 2. But Rocky 1 is an all-around great movie. I love the Rocky franchise. Them are my honorable mentions.
Number 1, Inception. If you have not seen this movie, go see it. It is a masterclass in cinematography and storytelling. You could write essays on how this movie changed cinema after it dropped. Even the trailer itself changed the way that trailers were made for the next 10 years or so. But this is a movie I saw back in my senior year of high school, and it is the first movie that made me realize that cinema is actually art. Up until then, all I'd ever seen in theaters were, Spider-Man or cartoons, Pixar, Shrek, And in their own right, those are art too, but this is the first adult movie, that I saw. I mean, it's PG-13, but it wasn't a kid's movie, This was my first exposure to that. But anyways, I'm not even going to try to explain the plot in detail here. It follows a group of people who have a device that can go into the subconscious of someone, and they're trying to do some corporate espionage by planting an idea in someone's head, by physically going there themselves and with their own subconsciouses, and then they're able to go inside the subconscious's subconscious and just keep going down layers after layers, all different kinds of time things. And it's amazing. It's an amazing piece of cinematography. I know I didn't say much about the movie itself, I just kind of praised it, but there's not much that I can say that hasn't already been said. If you haven't seen Inception, go see it. It is an amazing piece of cinema, and that's why it's my number 1. It showed me that movies could be something more. Until next time, BoredTimeThings out. Thanks for having me, Robbie.
Alright, y'all. Now is my number 1. My number 1, hands down, Too Fast, Too Furious. I love the Fast and Furious franchise. Too Fast, Too Furious is my favorite iteration of the franchise. It actually has my favorite car. Whenever I first seen this car at the first race of this movie, the Nissan Skyline, the silver and blue squared Nissan Skyline, fell in love with this car. I love the first race. Brian winds up ramping over one of his opponents on this bridge and winning the race. And then Brian gets pulled back into going undercover, and he gets the help of his childhood friend. What is his name? I cannot. It's Tyrese Gibson's Rome. And Roman is still kind of mad at Brian. And what happens is they get back close in this movie, and one of my favorite parts is whenever Rome's got one of the guys that work for the big mob boss at the end of the movie, and they got to get rid of these guys because they're riding with them. So Rome, they put ejector seats into the cars, and Rome ejects his guy and says eject those seat, cuz, and then he just flies off. But Brian's ejection seat doesn't work, and I just love this movie. Is one of my favorite Fast and Furious movies. My favorite movie of all time. It's my number 1. But yeah, that's my top 5. The way I'm going to edit this video is I'm going to start it off with my number 5, and then switch it to Caleb's and vice versa. But y'all give both of us a subscribe and follow our channels. We're both Mississippi YouTubers. We ain't met in person, but we've met on Discord in the Mississippi Gamer Society group. And we're just trying to make something of ourselves. So if y'all like our content, like and subscribe. As always, Rob Burnham, make care from Sherman R&B signing out. Guys, keep you awesome. It's been an episode of TV91. See y'all next time.